Gravity Falls is no slouch when it comes to characters. Some of the most beloved characters in recent memory come from this little Disney Channel show, but it may be no surprise to you that some of those beloved characters have some very selfish moments.
Quit staring at me when I bathe!
Now, we've already looked at these characters on the moral spectrum, but today, we're talking about their selfishness. I'm Brad with Wicked Binge, and this is Gravity Falls, Selfless to Most Selfish.
It's time to take our chaos worldwide!
Since this is a new topic, we need to lay out a few ground rules about how this list works. We'll be ranking the characters based on a mix of selfish actions in episode and episodes focusing on their selfishness. Also for this list, selfish and greedy are not interchangeable, so this will be based wholly on actions that are taken to further one's own self-interest instead of other people's. We'll be starting with the least selfish character and move our way down until we reach the most selfish character in the series. No surprise that the gold medal of selflessness goes to none other than Tyler Cutebiker. Tyler is the current mayor of Gravity Falls and the local enthusiasm enthusiast. Tyler may be a bit scatterbrained, but he's by far the nicest and least selfish character in the series. This is exemplified when Weird Mageddon starts, and he tries to protect Gravity Falls by shooing Bill's Cipher away. This obviously doesn't work, but that doesn't change the meaning of the action. Tyler doesn't appear often, but he's never shown to be selfish. Waddles comes in at a very close second. Waddles is a pig, and as such, focuses on survival and pleasing his owner Mabel more than anything. Logically, a pig can't be very selfish, but that changes when the pig is voiced by Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Greetings, friends. It is I, Waddles the pig.
In the episode Little Gift Shop of Horrors, there's a section called Aberconings, where Waddles eats some goo that makes him smart. In this story, he starts to abandon Mabel so that he can use his smarts alongside Dipper. He stays this selfish throughout most of the section, until he realizes how sad Mabel is, and uses his dum-dum switch, turning him back into the lovable pig we all know. Taking our bronze medal of selflessness goes to Suze Ramirez. Suze is the resident handyman of the Mystery Shack and is one of the friendliest characters in the series.
I'm a Seuss.
He's been helping Stan and the Mystery Shack since he was 12 years old, and he seems to really love his job. Suze is a selfless individual, never getting mad at Stan, no matter what he does to deserve it. There are a few selfish moments from Suze, and even his worst moments are due to him not reading the room or being idiotic, such as being manipulated by Giffany, or cheating in pinball and leading to the events of the pinball story. However, these moments are overshadowed by the time he used the all-powerful Time Wish to clean up Dipper and Mabel, since they did so much for him.
I know who my family is now, and it's you dudes.
I mean, he also wished for an infinite pizza, but who wouldn't want that? Everyone's favorite iguana mom, Grinda, ranks next. Grinda ranks above her friends mostly because she doesn't appear often, and when she does, it's just to flank Mabel and Candy on whatever they're doing. However, when she appears, she's selfless, like willing to do whatever is necessary to help Mabel, such as illegally trafficking butterflies for the gnome who gave her the fairy dust needed to knock out the unicorn. However, in her most selfless episode, she, alongside Candy and Mabel, saved the boy band several times from the evil Erdman Bratzman who was holding them captive.
Candy, we gotta get past Mabel. She's gone boy crazy.
She and Candy want to free the band and let them go live their lives, while Mabel doesn't want to do this, even though they do set them free. Grinda's friend and BMO impersonator, Candy, barely ranks below her friend Grinda for one main reason, and that reason is the episode Northwest Mansion Mystery. While it is considered one of the best episodes, its B-plot focuses on Mabel, Candy, and Grinda at the boisterous Northwest Mansion party, where they find out about a boy named Marius von Funshauser, who's also going to the party. The three of them make a vow not to chase after him, and then Mabel and Candy decide to go behind Grinda's back and still try to chase him.
Our cuteness combined, one of us might have a chance.
This is the act that sets her lower than Grinda, because by all accounts, she and Grinda were equally selfless up to this point. Wendy Cordero is next on the list. Wendy is a weird one to place because she's a teenager, and teenagers are naturally selfish in most cases. However, Wendy isn't selfish in the usual sense. More often than not, she's the catalyst for selfish actions that both Dipper and Robbie commit. There are episodes that she's fine with the twins joining her in her friend group, or helping Dipper find out more about the author of the book.
Hey, body snatcher, snatch this!
She has a few selfish moments, however, such as leaving Dipper to go vandalize a high school with fireworks, or calling off the group's travel to the Woodstick Festival because she can't stand that Tambry got together with Robbie. There's also the Society of the Blind Eye, where she wants to use the memory manipulator to erase an annoying song from her head, but that's understandable. Next on the list is Fiddle Ford McGucket, or Old Man McGucket. He was an engineer who worked alongside Stanford Pines on the Universal Portal. After witnessing terrible things thanks to Ford, McGucket created a memory erasure device to forget everything he saw. After overuse of his memory erasure device and a quick trip through the Universal Portal, McGucket started to go insane and senile. But he was still an amazing engineer, creating a homicidal pterodactyl robot and an 80-foot-tall Shamebot, not to mention the amazing mechanical Gobblewalker. McGucket, having gone insane, has a solid mix of selfless and selfish moments, such as joining in the search for Waddles. Well, technically he was searching for his musical spoons, but he still helped them.
I ate my way through a dinosaur!
His most selfless moment is when we find out about his memory erasure technology, and McGucket takes multiple memory erasure beams to the face so that Dipper and Mabel wouldn't forget their summers. After he got his memory back, he helped Dipper and Mabel in all sorts of schemes to defeat Bill Cipher, which is why he landed here. Blendin Blandin travels onto our next spot on the list. Blendin is a time traveler who works under the Time Police and was sent to stop the anomalies in time at the Mystery Shack. However, it's found out that him trying to stop the time anomalies is actually what sets them off in the first place, thanks to Dipper and Mabel stealing the tape measure time machine from him. After Dipper and Mabel's time traveling adventures, they end up getting Blendin in major trouble, so much so that he was incarcerated in time prison.
I'll get you for this!
However, he invokes the deadly arena fight known as Globnar, forcing Dipper and Mabel to fight him. This is understandable, thanks to the fact that the two of them forced him to be put in prison. His selfishness also starts Weirdmageddon, thanks to falling for the oldest trick in the book, don't make a deal with Cipher, who had promised him to stop Time Baby from bothering him.
My body is a temple! How dare you!
Blendin is stupid and doesn't know what's best for the timeline, which leads to his selfish actions. The llama, Pacifica Northwest, climbs into the next spot on our list. Pacifica is a spoiled daughter of Preston and Priscilla Northwest, and the latest in a long line of the horrible Northwest family. Pacifica started off the series as an antagonist and a rival to Mabel in some shape or form. In some episodes, she is extremely egotistical, having no problem with insulting people or having people throw tomatoes at Stan when he was locked in the stockade.
You really are a sad, dumb little girl.
However, starting in the Gulf War, she was humbled thanks to Mabel and Dipper, since at the end of the episode, we learned that her parents aren't great, and she doesn't even know what sharing is. However, in her best and most selfless episode, she starts off by manipulating Dipper thanks to her parents. By the end of the episode, she decides to betray her parents and their control by letting the common folk of Gravity Falls into the very expensive Northwest Mansion Party, and in our eyes, kinda makes up for all the selfish acts in the earlier episodes. Robbie Valentino, the stitched heart teenager, ranks next on our list. Robbie is the ex-boyfriend of Wendy and Dipper's main rival, much in the way Pacifica is to Mabel. Robbie, like Wendy, is a teenager, and as such, is naturally selfish in most of his appearances. In episodes that show off the rivalry between Robbie and Dipper, Robbie acts naturally selfish in moments involving Wendy, even though he agrees not to fight with Dipper in front of Wendy.
We need to learn to just hate each other in silence.
In one of his worst episodes, and actually a lot of the characters' worst episodes, Robbie plays a song for Wendy under the pretense that he wrote it for her. But by the end of the episode, it's revealed that he just stole the song to play for Wendy, which ends up with the two breaking up. His only other major appearance after the breakup, he gets together with Tambry because of Mabel. While his getting together with Tambry breaks up the friend group and can be seen as selfish, it was under the effects of a love potion Mabel used, so he's off the hook for that one. The main reason why Robbie ranks below Pacifica is because he doesn't really have a moment that erases most of his selfishness like she does, save for trying to use his zodiac with everyone else, but that was because the world was in danger, so that's not saying much. Everyone's favorite con man, Stanley Pines, comes next. Stan is the proprietor of the Mystery Shack in Gravity Falls, a place dedicated to tricking the people of Gravity Falls into believing fake monsters and exhibits and taking their minds off the real creatures in the woods.
For once, being a liar and a cheat paid off.
Stan may be greedy and money hungry, doing anything for a dollar, no matter what it is or how embarrassing it might be, but throughout the series, Stan's goal is to open the interdimensional portal to save his twin brother, Ford. Stan has moments of selflessness to break up the monotony of his selfishness. A prime example of this is when he wanted to be mayor for the power, he ends up risking his life to save the twins when they're in danger. However, Stan is known for his selfish moments, and it would be unfair not to mention them. In Stan's worst episode, he was specifically asked by Mabel not to let Waddles out because he might get hurt or hunted down by a predator. Stan lets Waddles out anyway, and he's taken by the giant pterodactyl. But not only does he let Waddles get taken, but he lies about it to Mabel.
I'm not acting suspicious. You're acting suspicious. What's a pig?
Stan eventually changes his tune and saves Waddles from the pterodactyl, like the story he told earlier in the episode. Stan has also committed multiple crimes, and the episode Little Gift Shop of Horrors has a section called Hands Off that exemplifies his greedy and selfish nature to a T, where he steals from a witch and gets his hands taken away. Stan is a selfish person at heart, but he doesn't take the very bottom thanks to his mission to save Ford after he accidentally pushed him into the portal. Speaking of, Ford Pines comes into our next spot on the list. Ford is the author of the journals which the whole series revolved around, and the twin brother of Stan Pines. Ford doesn't appear for very long, only being a major character in the second half of the second season. But he's more selfish than his twin brother. Ford was denied his dream school by an accident caused by Stan, but he doesn't believe Stan when he tries to apologize and tell him it was an accident.
You did this because you couldn't handle me going to college on my own.
Ford eventually calls Stan to his home base in Gravity Falls and asks Stan to take hold of his journal and go as far away as possible. Ford also shacked up with the main villain, Bill Cipher, to gain forbidden knowledge and learn how to build the interdimensional portal. Ford was a genius and tried to make up for his actions with Bill by doing everything he possibly could to prevent Bill from coming back. After coming back to Gravity Falls, Ford threatens to kick Stan out of his house after the twins leave for California. But by the end of the series, he changes his mind and decides to finally go on the seafaring adventure with Stan they planned in their youth. Ford ranks this low because of all of his actions leading to him being trapped in the multiverse. This next ranking may surprise many of you, but Dipper Pines ranks next. Dipper is the paranoid, book-toting main character of the show alongside his sister Mabel. Dipper and Mabel are both very selfish, due to the fact they have the most screen time, but Dipper is slightly less selfish than his sister.
Time we stop goofing around and get to the bottom of it.
Dipper has his fair share of selfish moments, like selfishly using the copier machine to make clones of himself so that he can impress Wendy, ending up with some of his clothes stealing Robbie's bike, trying to make himself as tall as Mabel using the size-changing flashlight he made, abandoning his sister and friends to go hang out with Wendy at the Halloween party,
Trick-or-treating is for babies.
and trying to get the FBI to believe in the monsters of Gravity Falls, and even summoning a mass of zombies from the grave. However, episodes like Irrational Treasure show him in a better light. Helping Mabel with finding out her silliness was the correct action, and finding out the true founder of Gravity Falls. He gives up his assistant lifeguard job for Mabel, and flashbacks show that Dipper would do whatever is needed for his sister, even shaving part of his head.
We've always been there for each other.
However, Mabel Pines is slightly worse than her brother. Mabel is the fun-loving twin sister of Dipper and is often considered one of the most selfish characters in the show. Mabel has more selfish moments in the show than her brother does, even having selfish B-plots, like trying to cure Stan's fear of heights by blindfolding him and taking him to the top of a water tower, using golden dentures that force the user to speak the truth always, which leads to bad moments, and even after these moments, she refuses to take out the dentures from Grunkle Stan, thinking she would be a better boss than Stan, leading to a Grimoblin to escape and Wendy to stop working.
Now quit loafing and get to work!
Yes, Mabel.
Forcing Dipper to give up on not hurting Wendy so that she can keep her pig Waddles, even though there were multiple ways to have both of these contingencies happen. But in the most egregious example of her selfishness, she takes other people's love lives into her hands by forcing Robbie and Tambry to get together through a love potion she stole from someone calling themselves the Love God. This action separates a friend group and stops them from going to a music festival. She ranks outside the top 3 because, unlike the others, she has some redeemable moments. She allowed Blendin Blandin to live even after they were forced to go into a deadly war game, and she helped hundreds of people and creatures to prove she had a pure heart to a frankly evil and rude unicorn. Speaking of the top 3, the bronze medal of selfishness goes to Gideon Gleeful. Gideon was the main antagonist of Season 1 and a secondary antagonist in the second season. Gideon is obsessive, antagonistic, and doesn't know anything about denial, such as when Mabel breaks up with him. Gideon is also a major liar and doesn't mind spying on the townsfolk of Gravity Falls in his search for the other journals. Gideon lied to the entire town about his child's psychic status, making them all believe he was harmless. Trying to get his revenge, he then made multiple attempts to steal the shack from Stan to no avail. It eventually culminates in summoning the alternate dimensional being, Bill Cipher, to get his revenge on Stan by stealing the code from his memory.
I'll help you with this, and in return, you can help me with something I've been working on.
He's eventually sent to jail because of all his selfish and illegal actions, where he resides for most of Season 2. His stay in jail seems to make him slightly better, allowing Dipper and Wendy to pass by to save Mabel, which gets him in major trouble with Bill afterwards. However, the silver medal of selfish characters goes to Preston and Priscilla Northwest. These two are the resident rich people in Gravity Falls and descendants of the supposed town founder, as well as the parents to Pacifica Northwest. They don't appear often, but when they do, they're always shown in a negative light. In their first major appearance, they abandoned Pacifica at the golf course for a party they want to attend.
We have a party to go to. We'll just read about your victory in the paper.
They don't seem to care for their daughter, even having her trained like a dog to obey them at the ring of a bell. At their worst, they cover up what happened to Archibald Corduroy and how they were aware of the curse he set upon the Northwest family and their mansion parties.
We'll eat the butler.
They obviously don't care about the town or its people, even trying to work for Bill Cipher before Preston gets his comeuppance and has all his facial orifices shifted around. They have one saving grace, and that was telling Pacifica to hold hands with Old Man McGucket to power the Zodiac. But like we said with Robbie, that was to prevent worldwide destruction, and the only good thing we ever see the Northwest do. To no one's surprise, Bill Cipher takes the selfish gold on this one. Bill Cipher is the main antagonist of Season 2, and by proxy, the whole show. Bill is a dream demon who can possess people and enter their minds or dreams. Bill's goal is to escape from the second dimension and gain a physical form to start an extinction-level Armageddon event.
Physical form? Don't mind if I do!
Bill is maniacal and sadistic, loving to have fun while torturing victims, such as the aforementioned orifice switching. Bill takes over bodies and pushes them to near breakage with no care about the original owner. He will pull out all the deer's teeth for a present and will take on the form that people fear most. He's by far the most selfish character. His world domination plot is just a plea for having as much fun as he can manage before destroying the planet. And his cut song, "It's Gonna Get Weird," is even more proof of that.
I'll remake a fun world, a better world.
Alright, but what about you guys? Did you like this concept? Did we give someone too much credit? Someone not enough? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to hit that notification bell and binge our Good to Evil playlist, where we break down the morality of the characters and your favorite shows. But most importantly, stay wicked.